It was a big day for the Steelers defensive line at training camp as practice resumed after their day off on Sunday. But on Monday, Tyson Alualu was back healthy. Larry Ogunjobi got his first full padded action for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we saw some of the young guys showing up and showing out. We'll talk about the defensive line and a lot more that happened. Minkah Fitzpatrick also made his return and his presence felt. A lot to talk about today on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We have breaking news. Now, it's not really breaking news because you probably heard about it by now, but on Monday's practice, where the Steelers had Sunday off, the Steelers did get back, as we had been hearing, Tyson Alualu and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Also, Chase Claypool was back, maybe not in the full 100%, but he practiced in full. He practiced with pads on. Was out there running routes, catching passes in the full team practice. And Larry Ogunjobi was back, was on the field for the first time for the Steelers. He had been on the field, but he hadn't been wearing full pads and been practicing in full, hitting guys and taking part in full football activities. Mike Tomlin told us at the beginning of camp that they were going to take it slow with him and they were going to take their time and watch him grow. You could tell he was very excited to get Ogunjobi back. When we asked him about that after practice, just look at the smile on his face. If you're watching on YouTube, just look at the smile. If you're listening, you could just hear he's happy to see Larry Ogunjobi work. And here's Mike Tomlin.
The foot, get involved. From your standpoint, what was it like to see him being woven into this defensive front?
Didn't take long for his presence to be felt. He's a big man. He comes off blocks. We're glad to have him out there, and we look forward to him just getting better and better.
Now, when you listen to that from Mike Tomlin, you're saying like, man, he's going to keep it short, but he is happy to see him out there. And to tell you the truth, right in the middle of practice, you know, they put him in 11-on-11s right next to Cam Heyward. He gets a tackle for loss immediately. And like half the defense goes up to him and is like, let's go, Larry. And you hear him like dapping up the back of his helmet. There was excitement there. There is an excitement for him to be joining this defensive front. Also, Tyson Alualu was back in the fold, fully padded. There's a lot of excitement around this group now that they've got Ogunjobi back in. And there was a lot of terror when Stephon Tuitt did retire because there was a lot of concern. Oh man, are they just going to be down a full starter? And Ogunjobi has a lot of people excited for what he's going to bring to the table. You saw his handwork. You saw how physical he was. He was changing the line of scrimmage. He does look like he's going to be that really good guy to pair with Cam Heyward up the middle and work with him and Alualu as a trio whenever they want to go with a three-man front, with their 3-4 looks. But we got a chance to talk to Larry about his first day in pads, and he seemed to take it in stride. But listen to how he's talking, not just about himself, but his teammates and even the younger guys on the roster. When I got a chance to talk to him, here's Larry Ogunjobi from the Monday practice.
Dapped you up and was like, let's go. What's it been like, as you've warmed up? How's the team received you and you built relationships?
It's been cool. The first thing Coach T talked about was, welcoming the new guys, especially the late acquisition. And I didn't get here until, just now in training camp. But the guys opened me with welcome arms, and it was real cool. I'm just happy to be here. Happy for another opportunity to do what I love.
What have you seen from some of the younger guys like Isaiahh Loudermilk, DeMarvin Leal, guys that are still figuring their way in the NFL?
Very coachable. They want to be good. They're very coachable. They take what Coach Dunbar tells them and apply them. You see it in practice every day, and I feel like the sky's the limit for both of them.
Is that how you feel about this group as a whole?
Yeah.
Are you able to pick up on tendencies, kind of start building that connection with guys like Cam, and Isaiah, and them before you got on the field, before you got back on the field?
Yeah, you kind of see how guys play, what they like to do, how they like to rush, how they like to move, how they play the game. And trying to be a student of the game, you kind of look at that. So it was good to kind of get a feel for everybody and kind of understand what they like, how they like to operate, how they like to move. And so I just take it one day at a time. And when you're not playing, you get to watch a lot.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks enough to
Now, we do apologize for all the background noise. This is what happens at training camps when everyone's yelling, "Kenny, sign my autograph." It gets a little in the background. But basically, if it was tough to hear through Larry Ogunjobi was saying, the basic points was, hey, yeah, he had been studying, he had been watching, he's been talking to everybody, and he has a good relationship with the team. Everyone's been very excited but patient to see him work through. And he's also seen the younger guys be very coachable. And I mentioned specifically DeMarvin Leal and Isaiahh Loudermilk, two guys that this team is hoping could step in and say, hey, you're going to be that second platoon of defensive linemen that we're sending out there to give these guys a breather. But more to Ogunjobi, this is now a guy where, I talked about this before. Stephon Tuitt, what made him so special was that if you left him in a one-on-one, if you left him in a one-on-one, he could crush you. If you double-teamed him, he could hold his ground. But if you double-teamed him, it means that you're taking away the potential double-team from either Cam Heyward or TJ Watt, because you can't double-team everybody on this defensive front. And that's where Ogunjobi was showing early on, hey, I'm back, I'm here, and this is going to be a good group. And he's very confident about this group moving forward, just to show, hey, we can be back up there in the top group. And I think that's a big part of what the Steelers defense need and the Steelers team needs. I've said all along, this going into this season, this has to be a top tier defense for this team to be successful and this team to make a serious playoff run. And for it to be a top tier defense, they need to fix the defensive line. I said throughout the offseason, through the draft, I was like, okay, maybe they did. If they have Stephon Tuitt back, I think they'll be in a really good place. When Tuitt retired, we were like, uh-oh, maybe there is a problem. They went and got Ogunjobi. Then it was just a matter of seeing, hey, would he be healthy? Could he practice in camp? What does he look like in camp? For a first stage perspective, he looks pretty good. And again, I always tell you guys, take every day, one day at a time. Don't make one specific day the end-all, be-all of your grades of camp. But that's a very good start for what a veteran he is, and for showing, hey, this is what could be coming when he is fully healthy if the Steelers can keep this defensive line together. And again, if this defensive line does stay healthy and does play at the level that I think that they can with Ogunjobi, Heyward, Alualu, Loudermilk, and Leal, you look at this at them and you say, man, if they can not only rush the passer, but get back to stuffing the run by clogging up the holes and making life easier for Miles Jack, Devin Bush, Robert Spillane, that crew, it will change the entire dynamic of how the defense worked last year. Because the defense was the main reason why the Steelers won most of their games. But they did so while being the worst rushing defense in the NFL. Imagine all the sacks that came from TJ Watt, all the sacks that we saw from Alex Highsmith, then the pressure from Cam Heyward. Add in those guys for pressure, but also now up the middle, the run isn't a problem. I'm telling you, you get those situations, you're going to force more 3rd and longs, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 12s. You get in those situations, it gives the opportunity for the guys in the back end, like Minkah Fitzpatrick, like Terrell Edmonds, like Ahkello Witherspoon, who made a really nice play on a ball to break up a pass to Chase Claypool. You're going to see those guys getting more opportunities to make plays on the football and more chances for them to be aggressive in their disguised coverages. And we're going to talk about those disguised coverages sometime this week, because I got some interesting quotes, but there's a couple more people I want to talk to before we finalize that video that we're going to do. But I wanted to talk more about this defensive line because DeMarvin Leal, he is looking nasty out here. I talked to him. You're going to hear my talk with him in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, so don't go anywhere. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. Of course, y'all know about Built Bar. Built Bar is the awesome protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Now, of course, I've been telling you about the cookie dough chunk puff flavor. The cookie dough chunk puff flavor, if you don't know about the puffs, first of all, puffs are basically like regular Built Bars. They're less chewy, more marshmallowy, still covered in 100% real chocolate, but they have that kick of flavor right in the middle of it, and it tastes amazing. And this is like chocolate infused with cookie dough in the middle. It's the best treat ever. And to me, I like different Built Bars here and there, but the cookie dough chunk puff has taken my #1 spot. I used to be a double chocolate mousse guy. The cookie dough chunk puff is through the world. Birthday cake puff was also very good, but this cookie dough flavor is ridiculous. And the cool thing is just like all the other ones, it's healthy for you while tasting amazing. You get 160 calories only, but a whopping 15 grams of protein. So you're going to be able to get up on your protein, and that's collagen protein, which helps you absorb proteins more better. It's more healthy for your for your body and gives you more health benefits. And at the same time, it tastes amazing. So go to built.com right now, sign up, and go use that promo code LOCKED15. It's LOCKED15, LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next order when you order from built.com. Get some of those cookie dough chunk puff flavors delivered right to your door. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We're recording here from St. Vincent College right after their Monday practice. And I wanted to talk a lot about the defensive line because, again, we saw Alualu, we saw Ogunjobi. We saw less of Alualu because I think, like, hey, he's 35. He takes time. But they did want to see Ogunjobi in action. And we did like we saw of him. But I'm telling you, the stuff I'm seeing out of DeMarvin Leal, it is very encouraging that he is going to be an important part of this defense this year as a secondary defensive lineman, but that he may actually be part of the future for the Steelers defensive line, to be a guy that, like, hey, you don't have to go out and draft a defensive tackle in the first round next year. Because I thought they were going to have to do it this year to kind of say, hey, even if Tuitt was back, I was always like, hey, man, Tuitt's going to be in his late 20s. He would have been 29 years old even if he was back. Heyward's in his early 30s. You need a new, young, stalwart offensive line or defensive lineman who's going to set the tone and kind of be that future flag holder of, hey, the Steelers defensive line is still one of the baddest in the NFL. DeMarvin Leal is playing that part. Now, you heard about Ogunjobi talk about how coachable these young guys are. Leal's been told me before training camp, and I talked about it on this show, that he took boxing lessons and he was taking boxing training to quicken his hands. And I'm telling you, when you're watching these practices, you're seeing quick hands, and he's doing different moves. That's what's the most impressive with me about DeMarvin Leal. He is doing moves to set up other moves already. He has the rip. He has the swim. He has the push and pull. He's able to use his longer frame to kind of keep people from getting into his frame and get to be able to use different hand moves in the chop. Now, they don't always win. There's times that guys see something. And even there was one time where Karl Dunbar was saying, hey, DeMarvin, you're showing, you're telling, you're showing your tell, you're showing them where you're going to go. You got to cover that up a little bit better, because there were times that the offensive lineman did see him coming with certain moves that he was bringing. But that's all part of being a rookie. I can tell you, I covered the Steelers back in 2017. I tell people all the time, TJ Watt had like one move when he came to camp, and it took him time to kind of build up to where he was today. I'm not saying Leal is going to beat TJ Watt, but this guy has a number of moves already in his back pocket that he's using. Here is my talk with DeMarvin Leal, just getting a sense from him from how he feels his progress is going and what Karl Dunbar has been trying to pull out of him as a player. Here is DeMarvin.
DeMarvin, we're seeing those active hands. You told me you worked on boxing coming into camp. How much have you seen it pay off and the different things you've been able to do?
When it's correct technique, correct everything's working correctly. Everything's just as well I planned it. And, just got to continue working.
Larry told us that you are very coachable. What has it been like for you, just kind of taking you? What are the things that Karl Dunbar's been able to pull out of you? It's like, hey, I didn't see that about myself coming into camp.
Just getting upfield, and just, paying attention to what the little things that they say, that the advice that they have, the knowledge that they have is very helpful. Just hand technique, where exactly put your hands, when it comes to this, what to read before a snap. So just all the little things that they're teaching me, I'm listening to.
You and Isaiah seem to be like a tag team of guys that are coming in and filling in. How you guys bonded as teammates, kind of in the same spot, working in the same way?
Just talking. Always talking, just being able to have conversations that are even not about football. Just always being together, I try to stay along with the guys and be with them a lot. So I just try to build a relationship, and the relationship reflects on the field as well.
Last thing, you got now with Larry back, you got Tyson back, and Cam's there. Now you have all the older guys kind of working their way in. What's it kind of like learning from them every day while you're also trying to grow?
Just always paying attention to the little things that they do, and the steps that they make, after a bad play, how they react to it, just paying attention to all the little details.
Gotcha. DeMarvin.
And there was DeMarvin. And again, sorry for the sound. You're going to hear a lot of people yelling in the background when we're at St. Vincent. This wasn't even at St. Vincent. This was at the Latrobe Memorial Stadium, where they were supposed to hold the Friday Night Lights practice, but weren't able to because thunderstorms happened, and that occurred. So they moved it over, practice over there today or Monday. But It was a good practice for DeMarvin. Now, he talked about how, hey, like, getting upfield. What does that mean? That means Karl Dunbar saying, we need you to play fast. Your game is getting off the ball, getting to your moves, and not thinking too much, not trying to hesitate, not trying to wait to see what they do. Set the tone. And that is DeMarvin Leal's game. I said when he was drafted, this guy is quick. This guy is fast. He is a guy that's going to close distances and be able to move quickly to beat guys in their offensive stances. And if an offensive lineman takes too long to get back into their drop, that is where he's going to crush them as a pass rusher. If they're taking too long to come up out of their stance in the run, that's where he's going to be able to set the tone and be able to change the line of scrimmage to get to open up opportunities for the linebackers to come in and finish plays on run defense, or he makes the play himself. And I'm telling you, when I'm watching him do these different moves, and he's going up against, veteran guys and young guys, and I've seen him use different moves to win. Now, he doesn't win all the time, and I do think that this is his biggest thing. He is very great at starting a play. When I see him come up out of his stance, he has a plan of attack, and he has a thought, and he does seem to have different ideas for different players and different opponents that he's going up against. That is very good for a young player to be thinking at that level already. But the problem I think that he runs up against is in the middle of his move, sometimes he doesn't finish, or sometimes he doesn't have his first move is read and understood, and he doesn't have a counter. What TJ Watt does that's so special, and I know DeMarvin Leal, more of an interior guy, and of course TJ Watt, an edge guy. What TJ Watt does that's so special is that he has a move and then he has a counter if he sees and thinks that you are into that first move. TJ Watt's spin move is ridiculous. He looks like he's setting you up for a rip to the outside, so the offensive tackles will anchor more to the outside to be prepared for that. But when they anchor, that little flinch, that little step that way, he just slaps your hand down and then spins to the inside, and then you're just crushed. That is something that he developed over time. It took him years to perfect, but now it is perfected. I was watching him do it to Chukwuma Okorafor, and there was a couple times Okorafor did a good job, and then TJ pulled that out. I'm like, my goodness, DeMarvin Leal is in the baby stages of doing stuff like that, but I'm seeing him think through these things, and I think that's the most important part of this, is that he is able to say conceptually, I get it. I know what I'm supposed to do, and I'm here doing. And there's times you see him finish it, but it's not consistent, and that's okay. He's a third-round draft pick rookie in a position that's behind Cam Heyward, behind Larry Ogunjobi, and behind Tyson Alualu. And I said at the beginning of the draft, at the end of the draft, I said, hey, maybe they move him to help with the edge a little bit more. That's not where they're going to have him. They like how violent he is in there. And I got to say, I was a little surprised. The one thing I saw in his college tape, he would get bullied a little bit in the run defense, and I was worried, like, I'm not so sure if he's going to fit in there, and that's a big fix that they want to have. He's not getting bullied out there in the run defense, at least by the Steelers' offensive line. Now, when they start going up against opponents, let's see how he does then. But I think that he's going to hold up well, and I think that he's starting off with a really good position to be that guy that can grow into that spot. Isaiahh Loudermilk, another guy, I've liked the growth that he's shown. I actually think that DeMarvin Leal is passing him up a bit in this camp. But that's not a bad thing, because I think DeMarvin is playing at just a really high level in these practices. But that being said, I also think that Loudermilk, there's things that he's still working on, and he's not the kind of the stud that people were hoping he would develop into. But I think he's still a guy who's slowly developing into that Brett Kiesel type of defensive lineman, where not a superstar, but a very good role player. And I think that he's developing things. He doesn't have all the different moves that Leal has, and I don't think he's as quick as Leal, but his frame, his size, and his strength is coming into it. He just has to keep working on how to use it. So defensive line, you're happy about the guys up top with Cam, Alualu, and Ogunjobi, and those guys at the top of the depth chart. But man, I think you guys should be really happy about the guys behind them, because that doesn't. I haven't even said Chris Wormley's name, and he's looked solid in camp. This defensive line might be fixed, and if the defensive line is fixed, it's a big problem for a lot of offenses, because that was the one group last year that you could really pick at the most in the run game and try to move all the backups around. Now those backups are going to be fresher because they're going to be backing up. They're not going to be starters, and they're going to be more experienced. And DeMarvin Leal, I think, could be one of those special ones of that group. But we want to float it around. We don't want to talk all defensive line today. I do want to tell you guys, I did see Minkah Fitzpatrick back out there. He had a really cool moment or two. We'll talk about him in just a second here. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Dave. Now, if you don't know about Dave, Dave is an awesome banking app that is here to help you manage your finances day to day and help you out with a function called Extra Cash. Now, Extra Cash is a function when you go and download the Dave banking app to your phone. You can get up to $500 instantly through the Extra Cash option. That's more money to fill up your tank, buy a wedding gift, and catch up on bills. You can finally tackle those expenses that have been stressing you out without any hangups. There's no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already started downloading the Dave app today, and they get the financial relief that they need with Extra Cash. So if you're in a pinch, you need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a hand from future you. Download the Dave app from the App Store right now. That's D-A-V-E, Dave. Sign up for Extra Cash account and you get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter. We're finishing up our talk. We're going to do an all-defensive episode. You know, I talked a lot about the offensive line yesterday, so let's focus on the defense even more so today. But we talked about the defensive line. Minkah Fitzpatrick was back, and Minkah wasn't out there snagging interceptions left and right because that's just not going to happen all the time, especially, you know, quarterbacks know he's there, and the Steelers quarterbacks know who he is even better than opponents do. But you did feel his presence almost immediately. It was the communication, the sharpness of where guys were going. The defense knew where they were going. There was a play they were doing. They did a second round of 7 shots because they did a first round of 7 shots and the defense won 5-2. They did a second round. The offense did win 4-3. But Minkah Fitzpatrick on a run play, they call up Benny Snell into the hole. He has the lane. It looks like he's going to get in. And Minkah Fitzpatrick just delivers this massive hit that stops him and makes him go backwards. And you just see Minkah come out of the line like, yes, I'm back. And you just saw the joy in his face, the excitement from the team. And everyone was like, oh, snap, that was an announce your presence type of thing. This is a guy who he was on the non-football related injury list for the past couple weeks. And first day in full pads, he's just out here whacking people. And I will say, Benny Snell, you know, people think, well, it's just Benny Snell. What's the big deal? He's been looking good, too. I've actually liked several of the backup running backs. Benny Snell's put himself in a really good conversation with stuff. I told y'all about Jaylen Warren. He's continued to look good. But, man, I really like Mateo Durant. He had some good runs on Monday. There were some tough runs where he made guys miss in the hole to extend plays. Mike Tomlin was giving him some praise for that. I'll also say Master Teague, the rookie out of Ohio State that they brought in after Jeffrey McNichols didn't work out. I think he's made some plays. So this is going to be an interesting running back room to work with. But again, back to Minkah Fitzpatrick. One thing that I've seen from this Steelers defense is the excitement to get him back in the fold, but also how flexible they're going to be. And I want to talk more about that flexibility later, but I saw Karl Joseph play in the slot. I thought he acquitted himself well with the group, but I really wonder if you're thinking, if Minkah Fitzpatrick's back out there and you still got Terrell Edmonds, I really think the Steelers should consider a Damontae KZ being your slot guy, or at least a guy who can also operate as a safety while also helping in the slot. And I think that's where Cam Sutton fits very well. I think Damontae KZ could help there as well, but they need guys who can play that role, because here's the thing. Minkah can do that role. Now, you want him typically being your center fielder. You want him being the guy that patrols the middle part of the field and gets guys into things. But if you sometimes line him up like he's going to be in the slot, it forces quarterbacks to say, okay, is he covering the slot, or is this a trick to make me think that that I should go somewhere else, and really he's about to drop back to the middle of the field and there's going to be a blitz coming from somewhere, and I'm going to have to think, and I'm going to make that big mistake that gives Minkah the ball. Those are the type of things, those headaches that Terrell Austin wants to create for offenses. And with Minkah back, I do think that those headaches are going to be on the table. And it was never a question of whether he would be back. It was a question of when. But seeing this is the first time that we've seen as close to the number one defense as possible. You saw Ogunjobi. Alualu was still, again, working his way back out there. But you saw Ogunjobi with Cam Heyward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. Highsmith did have, I believe, it was a groin. No, it was a ribs injury. It was a ribs injury. But he said, Mike Tomlin was like, yeah, no, it wasn't that big of a deal. But you saw those guys out there. You saw the secondary still out there. Cam Sutton, Kello Witherspoon, and Levi Wallace, who was back from his illness that had been sidelining him for the past week or so. And then you saw Edmonds and Fitzpatrick with Damontae KZ rotating in there. And even I'd say Trey Norwood. Trey Norwood also had a really good run fill. There was a jet sweep that the Steelers called, and I think it was Anthony McFarland. No, it was Steven Sims. He comes around one end, and you just see Norwood just fly up and blow up the play. He is getting smarter. He is getting sharper, and he's now your fourth safety option. Remember last year, he was basically the first one off the bench, because of their situation that they had. And you saw him in the opening week of the season getting a lot of snaps behind Minkah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds. Well, now you have a situation where he's still going to get, I think, a decent amount of snaps, not as many as last year, but now he gets to kind of do it in a more limited role where he's like, hey, this game is slowing down for me now that I'm a second-year player, and he's getting more aggressive. Last year, I saw him be more passive and just be like, hey, I'm going to make the smart play over here, the smart play over there. Now he's thinking faster, acting faster. When you're thinking and acting faster, you're making more plays, and that's where I see Trey Norwood fitting into the secondary. So you have a safety group that I think you can be very excited about, just like you can be excited about the defensive line group. Questions still, those linebackers. Miles Jack still playing well. Devin Bush has his good days, has his not so good days. Robert Spillane, really good against the run, still a liability against the pass. If that group can come together, that could be the key to putting this entire defense together. I've said it before, the linebackers are going to be the glue. Defensive line, I think, will be great. Safeties, I think, will be really, really good to great. The corners, I think, can be solid to really good, but they won't be the liabilities. If those linebackers can not be liabilities, but be active playmakers in this defense, you're looking back at this Steelers defense and thinking, hey, they could be one of the best in the NFL. And with these guys healthy and back again, maybe we get to really see it start to come to fruition in camp, and maybe we get a really good glimpse of it when they take on the Seahawks this Saturday in their first preseason game. That being said, we're excited because football's back for the Steelers this Saturday, and we cannot wait to see that. I'll be on hand there because it will be at Acrisure Stadium. I almost said Heinz Field. Not doing that. But point being, we're going to be there. If you're going to be there, let me know. I'm Chris Carter at Carter Critiques. If you're at training camp or at Heinz Field, hit me up. I'm always down to chat with our fans. There's been a lot of people who've said hello and posted up and said very nice things. Really appreciate everyone who does that because it's nice to hear that the work is appreciated. And hey, we get a lot of listeners, a lot of viewers, a lot of people who comment on the show. Just know that you're all appreciated. If I can't get to you right then, it just means, hey, we're moving and we're busy. But thanks for checking out the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. I will be starting up with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette within about a week. So you'll start seeing my work there as I cover Pitt athletics for them. You'll also continue to see and hear me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast that you can find on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube and you liked it, hit the like button, please. If you enjoyed the content, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes. We'll be back with more after Tuesday's practice, talking about your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.